And with that, let me now turn to our guest, Luke David Irving, the chief of the UN Mine Action Program in the Occupied Palestinian Territory. Can we please bring our guest up onto the screen? Hi, Mr. Irving.
Hi,
Welcome to the briefing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'll make a short statement from UNMAS on this current situation, and then I'll proceed to questions and Q&A. Thank you so much. As UNMAS, we welcome the ceasefire in Gaza, but as communities and humanitarian personnel now move through affected areas, the explosive risk is incredibly high. We know from decades of experience that many other conflicts ends, explosive ordnance continue to maim and kill. Gaza is no exception. Just last week, we saw news reports of 5 children injured, 2 of them very seriously, while encountering explosive ordnance in the rubble. UNMAS is following up to confirm the details of these reports, but it is one of hundreds of stories of people, often children, killed and suffering in life-changing injuries at the hands of these dangerous items. As of today, 328 victims of explosive ordnance, including injuries and deaths, have been reported to UNMAS since October 2023. We expect that this figure is significantly underreported. Unfortunately, we can estimate that many more people have been injured or killed by ordnance littering Gaza over the past 2 years. According to a recent report by the World Health Organization, nearly 42,000 people have sustained life-changing injuries caused by the ongoing conflict since October 23. Since October 23, UNMAS has responded to the threat in Gaza and has identified 560 explosive ordnance items in the areas that we have been able to access. However, we will not know the full extent of the contamination in Gaza until and unless a comprehensive survey can take place and can be done. We expect to find many more items in the coming weeks as we can access more areas under the ceasefire. We're deeply concerned about the heightened risk about these items posed in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. As people try to salvage what is left of their homes and belongings, children play in conflict-affected places, and humanitarian personnel circulate to areas that were previously inaccessible due to fighting. Humanitarian mine action is indispensable to pave the way for aid delivery and any recovery and reconstruction as it moves forward. This threat requires a rapid and expanded humanitarian mine action response, and we and our partners have been preparing for this moment. UNMAS has reached an estimated 460,000 people in in-person risk education messaging, reaching people in the areas, at IDP shelters, and in health centres to help people understand the risk and implement safe behaviours. Since March 2025, we have produced over 400,000 risk education materials, including flyers, stickers, and safe messaging, explosive ordnance awareness, and victim and incident reporting. 308,000 of which are already pre-positioned with our humanitarian partners, ready to distribute to communities they reach. We need to reach the entire population of Gaza with these messages to mitigate the risk of these explosive items. In addition, we are supporting our humanitarian partners to expand their delivery of aid services to affected populations, including in areas that were previously inaccessible. Our explosive ordnance disposal experts conduct technical assessments of roads and sites like wash facilities, health centres, shelters, agricultural areas, bakeries. These enable our partners to proceed safely with their critical humanitarian response, rehabilitating hospitals, delivering food aid to those in need, and we conduct those need assessments across Gaza. We also support early recovery efforts to enable partners to safely clear some estimated 50 to 60 million tonnes of debris, which may have been contaminated with explosive ordnance. To restore service and expand humanitarian access since the ceasefire was ratified since 10th of October, we have received almost 100 requests for mine action support from our partners, averaging about 10 new requests a day. We are positioned to respond to this demand, including working with partners to bring more technical personnel into Gaza to support this scale-up, which is really important. Yet these actions will not eliminate the explosive ordnance threat in Gaza. The humanitarian mine action sector needs approval from various authorities to bring in critical disposal equipment, and we ask that this equipment gets brought in for the wider sector. And this will enable the longer-term recovery of Gaza. In the meantime, UNMAS is committed to continue to mitigate the risk of explosive ordnance and support the people of Gaza wherever we are needed to facilitate safe movement and recovery. I'd like to thank our donors for their continued support, and thank you for having me today. I'm prepared now to have any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the floor to questions. Yes, Deji.
Hi, this is Xu Dezhi with China Central Television. First, on behalf of the UN Correspondent Association, thank you for your briefing. I have a couple of questions. Can you give us a clearer idea of how much of the risk now? What's your assessment of the risk for the explosives now in Gaza? And do you have enough manpower to deal with it? And what is your priority when dealing with explosives? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So firstly, to address that, we can't say exactly how much there is. We know from previous experience, and generally with conflicts, there's going to be a large-scale contamination. You always have this when two warring parties use explosive weapons against one another. There's always explosive ordnance that remains. And we have seen this throughout the conflict in our time in presence in Gaza. And as we're now in the ceasefire, people move back to their homes. There's more movement of people. There is more access. Explosive items could be in the rubble, in these areas, and they're more exposed. So the threat will increase as people move around, and especially when construction, reconstruction, recovery efforts start. And sorry, your final question.
Yeah, do you have enough manpower, and what is your priority so far in Gaza?
We're scaling up. First up, the priority. The prioritization would always be critical infrastructure, access, roads opening up, basically the services that could stabilize the situation, allow people to return to a normal way of life, life-saving infrastructure. That's the priority. So we put those in first. I absolutely welcome, and we hope as a sector, and I speak on behalf of the mine action sector, that we can expand and scale up. Other partners will come in. Other international organizations will come in, I hope, in the coming weeks. And we absolutely welcome this, and we can expand collectively as a unified sector to address these needs. But as I said, the priority now is these critical infrastructure sites and the roads and the rubble being removed so people can, commerce can return and livelihoods can return. Thank you.
Thanks. Sina?
Hello, this is Zina from Yemen Free. I want to ask, what are your tools and plans to reach all Gazans, especially inside the risky places in the north like this and in the mid-Gaza center? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. As I said before, the priorities are always those sites and areas where there's highest humanitarian need and real vital infrastructure can reach the most people. That's usually more community-based infrastructure as opposed to individual homes. As of when we have this access becomes all clear and more resources become online, we can expand and address everything. We cannot meet all demand now, and it will take a large amount of time to get to all the places and those in need, which I can't frame exactly because it completely depends on resources and how many people can get in and how many organizations can get in. And I, again, in my statement, would emphasize, I would hope there's positive steps moving towards this, that we can get our equipment in, our specialist equipment in, our technical equipment in, and that allows us to carry on our work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Magdalena?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hello. Oh, perfect. I just have a question about your donors. Are you able to give us more details about who they are? Are they private? Are they from government entities? What are their nationalities? And we're also wondering how much money you need to do everything you're hoping to do in Gaza and how much you might have at the moment.
Yeah, with donors, the ones so happy to I can share the are we have the European Union, we have Poland, we have Portugal, so member states there. We have, I could just bring up the series of Italy, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, Switzerland, and others. So usual funding arrangements with a UN entity. That's who we have, and again, they're very generous in what they've supported. Some of them have supported us for many years, not even before the conflict, the current conflict, now ceasefire. So yeah, it's been very generous support, and we absolutely appreciate the support. And sorry, your second question was?
How much money you have now and how much you need to get everything done.
I think again it's very hard to frame because without that survey being done and the whole sector, and I'd like to speak on for the sector. I don't want to get into specifics to UNMAS. It's very hard. We've had a few partners mention how much money for how much operators there are. I'd say we're scaling up. If we were to receive another $14 to $15 million, we can bring on another 45 operators to surgeon for the next 6 months. That's the sort of sums we're talking about. I won't disclose our ZAC funding arrangements right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Abdul Hamid.
Thank you so much. Abdul Hamid Sayam from the Arabic Daily and Quds Al Arabi. Thank you for the briefing. My question is about the Israeli cooperation. Do they cooperate with you in giving you some maps or some information about how to defuse these explosive ordnance? Are there any kind of cooperation and work with the Israelis?
While I get into specifics of member states and who and what, that there is, I think, a large collective effort to work on the ceasefire now, on the arrangements we have. There's a lot of conversations to move this forward, a collective effort to move this forward. As we do this will be updated. I don't want to get into, again, specifics of where blockages are or where there may be issues, but I want to put a more positive note. The ceasefire, which is now, more entities can come in. The conditions are set for NGOs to come in and to address these needs. It's a long process, and I want to emphasize this does not happen overnight. It's long, tedious work. It's dangerous work, as you can imagine, and that's what we want to focus on.
Frank?
Yes, Frank Uciardo from TRT World. Thank you for doing this briefing. First of all, how many unexploded ordnances have you been able to recover in 2 years? That's my first question.
I think I mentioned it in my statement, and remember, this is framed in in conflict conditions. You can't just go about and find these things. It's much more limited where access is. So you as expected, and we experienced this in the previous ceasefire, we have more access. Again, I talk about the humanitarian community, the early recovery entities, to go about and do this business. So as expected, we're now finding more items because we're getting out more, the teams have more access, they're conducting more missions. During the conflict phase, we weren't able to do that. No civil actor was able to do that. So just to answer your question on, we have identified around 560 items since October 23, 560 items.
Since they're unexploded, who made them? Where did they come from? Who manufactured those mines?
The sound slightly dropped, and I think you asked me who
I'm
manufactured them.
asking.
He's
Since they're
asking
unexploded ordnances, you must be able to identify who made them and where they came from, the source of these mines. Who is providing those munitions?
Look, as I said, there's various warring parties over this conflict, and everyone has used explosive weapons. So we're finding from all over where these sites. I'm not going to name particular items and to who and to what. I don't think that serves a purpose right now.
So for some reason, you
I want to emphasize my key message is that these items, the UXO, pose a threat to civilians and anyone going about their business. And it's really important we focus on warning people about the risk of these items. And it's really important we focus on methods of how to, dispose of these items or mark them so people are aware of them. And we don't have accidents. And that's the focus now that, for us in the community need to work on.
But for full transparency, don't you believe people should know where these ordinances are being made, where they're coming from? Any from the United States? Any from Britain?
That's not my place now to discuss that. Thank you.
Zainab?
I want to ask how UN staff are operating inside Gaza, especially they were rejected since the beginning. And are they facing any difficulties with any of the conflict parties there?
Well, as I say, we're now in a ceasefire condition. We have a lot more access, which is very welcoming, the situation at the moment. We've operated throughout the conflict as UNMAS. I'll focus on UNMAS. I don't want to speak on behalf of other agencies and UN entities. And we have been able, it's been an incredibly challenging environment. I've been there both in the previous ceasefire and over in many times of this last year. It is a very complex and difficult place. As a conflict, it's been dangerous. So I commend the staff and our partners for their bravery and the work they've been doing, because it's been immensely challenging. Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like once more to thank our guest, Luke David Irving, the chief of the Mine Action Program in the Occupied Palestinian Territory. Thanks again very much for your briefing, and best of luck on your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
All the best.
Okay. Have a good afternoon, everyone.